Hey, gorgeous people. Happy Monday morning, December 8th. Welcome to a very blessedly brief little episode of my transit show, First Light. As always, I'm your fearless host, Alexandra Blair of 9 Lives Astrology. And every week here on First Light, we drag astrology out of the dry, dusty, old, naked turkey plucked bookshelf banana behind my head. We bring it on down into references and culture and art and stories and personal mythologies that you're already living. This week is no exception, but the show is going to be extremely short and sweet because today is the motherfucking day. You know, I've been trying to get the hell out of Texas, move across the country, and I have been waylaid by some eighth house bullshit. But the full moon has cleared all of that away from me, and the Mars Saturn square has made it possible for me to go. So today, yes, today, I am going. My dear friend and astrologer, Sarah J. Posh, is in the skies right now, headed over to me. She's going to help me drive my car all the way back from whence she came to the West Coast. So today is a really big day. If you want to show your support, definitely leave me a comment, leave me an Instagram message, or you can visit my tip jar and buy Sarah and I a cold brew along the way. Thank you so much to everyone who has used my tip jar to show me some support during this time. It seriously means so much. And every time something comes through from one of you guys, tears fill my sweet little Cancer moon eyes. And I actually say a little prayer for you every single time. So thank you guys so much for showing support in that way. It really means a lot and it's really helping me right now. Another reason for the blessedly brief show is that I have exactly 2 brain cells left right now after a week straight of completely compulsively obsessing. And those 2 brain cells are named Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov. And if you know, you know. And if you know, you better leave me a freaky girl paw print in the comments so that I know where my real people are. 2 more quick updates. I have seen so many astrologers sensationalizing and just doom and glooming what's happening in 2026. And there's no doubt it is dramatic astrology. That is why the title of my webinar for the astrology of 2026 is Fault Lines and New Frontiers, the Dramatic Astrology of 2026. You can still get tickets to that. It starts this Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. We are doing 2 weeks. So we're doing a presentation this Thursday and next Thursday. We're recording it. We'll send it to you. I am hosting this along with astrologers Sarah Posh and Whitney Kranz. We are going to go month by month and talk about storylines, not getting too in the weeds with each particular transit, but actually making these into actionable themes and storylines that you can work with throughout the year and strategy that you can use. We do have a workbook that comes with it that uses Astrotheoros recently published ephemeris, and we are going transit by transit with journal prompts and integrations and all kinds of stuff in the workbook, which you can buy alongside your ticket to Fault Lines and New Frontiers. So make sure you get tickets for that because that is this Thursday. Okay, last thing. I am finally taking matters into my own hands and launching a community, an online community for astro weirdos and freaky paw print girls and people who love culture and grounded down to earth astrology and skeptical takes. It is going to be a really fun space. I'm currently building it out right now and getting incredibly excited about this. Next week, I'm going to be announcing your first opportunity to join that as a founding member. So keep your eyes peeled, and the community itself will be live in January. Let's get into these transits. So today, December 8th, don't forget that we have Mercury right now for the 3rd time situated right in the middle of this grand water trine situation where it is trining Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. Mercury is also opposing Uranus for the 3rd and final time now that Uranus has retrograded back into Taurus. By the end of the week, Mercury will make its way into Sagittarius and Mars will finish out that square with Saturn by progressing a few degrees and finishing out that square with Neptune. And the moon for her part moves this week all the way from early Leo through Virgo, through Libra, into the sign of her fall of Scorpio. All right, let's talk first about this Mars square Saturn and Neptune. So Mars squares Saturn earlier in the week and then progresses to squaring Neptune. And we talked a little bit about this Mars being a driving belief, almost a radical belief, a really full body yes in that vision-oriented sign of Sagittarius. Saturn's regress back into Pisces has been the friendliest Saturn has behaved in Pisces. And when I think about Mars and Saturn together, I often think of the phrase brute force, because together the 2 malefics really feel like a brute force. We can see this in the sign of Capricorn, which is ruled through domicile rulership by Saturn, and it is also ruled through exaltation rulership by Mars. When you think about a Capricorn's ability to brute force an issue or a problem or to just get shit done. That's what's happening when Mars and Saturn make a meaningful contact. And here they're forming the aspect of the square, which is actually said to be of the nature of Mars. It is provoking, it is goading, it is putting pressure on, and it is instigating. For some of us, Mars is going to feel like this fiery, impassioned, radical belief that is putting pressure on some of the restrictions that Saturn may have made very obvious during its stay in Pisces from March 2023 until now. Interesting to note on this cycle as well that this is the closing square of this Saturn and Mars cycle, and they will actually move to conjoin each other in Mars's domicile at 7 degrees of Aries on April 19th, 2026. So that's where this cycle is heading. It's heading towards Mars dignifying Saturn, and both of them lit up in the dry, fiery, masculine sign of Aries. But don't forget that Mars by week's end also forms into that square with Neptune. So it's almost like once we jailbreak, once we crack the safe, we actually have to get through probably a little bit of hopeful, wishful, delusional thinking. Now, I think when people hear delusional thinking, they immediately assume that they are hyping themselves up too much. I think this is kind of the opposite of that. It feels like there's maybe some self-doubt or some pessimism that Mars is going to be cracking the code to and breaking through. This is emphasized by the fact that Neptune stations direct this week. So now both Saturn and Neptune are moving forward through the zodiac, progressing. Don't forget they will conjoin at 0 degrees of Aries on the 20th of February, 2026. So that is where all of those planets are headed. Let's talk Mercury for a minute because Mercury is currently embroiled in these water trines and about to hit an opposition with Uranus for the third time. Mercury's been moving through these water trines since mid-October, and Mercury first opposed Uranus while Uranus was still in Gemini. So Mercury was at 0 Sagittarius and Uranus was at 0 Gemini on October 29th. But by the 19th of November, when they found each other again, Mercury was at 29 Scorpio and Uranus had retrograded back to 29 Taurus. Now on December 10th, Mercury will be at 28 degrees of Scorpio and Uranus will be at 28 degrees of Taurus. I've heard from so many of you guys that these water trines have not felt the way that you necessarily expected them to feel, which I think is kind of beautiful feedback for everybody in the astrology community. I actually love when clients say that to me because what it means is that you're learning something really important about your own natal context and the ways that things light up your chart in particular. This is part of why it's so hard as an astrologer to do things like horoscopes or to speak generally about astrology because all of these symbols mean really different things in your individual natal context. But if you're listening to the show and you're here with me and the past 6 or so weeks have not felt the way that you thought, maybe have even been tough, I urge you to use the power of Mercury coming through this last time to document that in some way, write it down, reflect. Know that this is probably going to be the least dramatic of these 3 passes Mercury has made, sheerly because of the degrees. The 0 degree in astrology and the 29 degree in astrology are really significant degrees. This is going to be happening at 28, and again, it's going to be happening for the 3rd time. If those dates that I mentioned line up with very specific events in your life, this is a transit you definitely want to pay attention to. All right, beautiful people, we've reached the part of the show where we talk about how I, as a pagan, human, animist, astrologer lady here on Earth, am going to be using the astrology of this week. And as you already damn well know, I'm going to be using it to finally move. After many weeks of telling you and threatening you with the move, it's actually happening. And the next video you see from me will be on a very different background. You may have noticed I didn't have a Friday video go up this week. I will be back on that track as soon as I can, but it is going to take me a little bit to get settled into my new space. Because San Diego is my hometown, I think first things first, I really need to make peace with the ocean. As weird as that sounds, I grew up living so close to the ocean that it was simultaneously a constant figure in my life and also something that I completely took for granted. And as a Cancer moon with Jupiter in Cancer, I really think one of my first orders of business is going to be making communion with the ocean and befriending her. I'll probably take my son there for a sunrise or a sunset and run around and just kind of get the feeling back in my bones of being that close to the ocean. Another thing is that I've been stocking up on loose change and I bought a couple canned cold brews, which are the offerings that I traditionally make to Mercury when I travel. So I will leave little coins in conspicuous places. Sometimes I offer a cold brew directly into like a potted plant or into the soil of the earth. And I just kind of like call out and say a prayer to Mercury. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that over the next few thousand miles with Sarah Posh. Don't forget to check out my Instagram because I am going to be posting a little bit of our epic road trip. So today's show has a few less references and a few less poetic poetics than normal. But don't worry, if you want poetics, you can go check out my latest episode of Astro Weirdos that I recorded with Kip Dooley. We actually did like a timed exercise to write your own Orphic style hymn for any planetary energy. So that should scratch your itch for this week. Don't forget, come to the Fault Lines to New Frontiers, the Dramatic Astrology of 2026 webinar. That's where you'll see me later this week. Otherwise, I will see you next Monday.